What happened when Jones, the owner of the big chicken restaurant chain, disguised himself as an ordinary man and endured the rudeness and indifference of his own employees? The harsh truth stunned Jones, but it also ignited a drive in him to make a change. A dramatic story of a journey from the darkness of discrimination to the light of fairness. Where are you watching from? Share in the comments below and subscribe to the channel to never miss heartwarming stories. The mellow tunes of jazz echoed through the streets of Harlem, New York. Marcus Jones stood in front of the big chicken restaurant, watching the bustling crowd going in and out. He frowned, checking the time on his watch. It was almost 11 a.m., the restaurant's peak hour. I need a job, Jones muttered to himself, and this place seems suitable. Jones was a black man in his early 30s. Raised in Harlem, he wore a worn denim jacket, khaki pants, and scuffed sneakers. He smoothed his short, curly hair, took a deep breath, and entered the restaurant. In his hand, he held a neatly folded job application. Inside the restaurant, the sound of chatter filled the air. Music played from the speakers, and the aroma of fried chicken wafted through the space. Jones approached the reception desk. "I'd like to apply for a job," he said to the receptionist. His voice warm. The girl looked up, scanning Jones from head to toe with a scrutinizing gaze. "Do you have any experience?" she asked, her tone indifferent. "I've done various jobs," Jones replied. "I can do just about anything." The girl smirked. "We're looking for a server," she said. "Do you have any experience waiting tables?" "I can learn quickly," Jones answered. "I've worked in small eateries before." The girl eyed Jones for a moment, then sighed. "All right, let me see," she said, turning to type on the computer. Name, address, phone number. Jones recited his information, feeling like he was being interrogated. The girl scribbled notes carelessly, not even looking at him. "All right," she said, "you can do a trial shift this morning. Go change, then see the shift manager." She handed Jones a worn-out, crumpled uniform. "The changing room is at the end of the hall," she said, then turned back to her phone. Ignoring Jones, Jones changed his clothes, feeling a bit uncomfortable. The white shirt was yellowed, and the apron was tattered. He stepped out of the changing room and met Mrs. Thompson, the shift manager. "Are you new?" Mrs. Thompson asked, her voice stern. "I'm Mrs. Thompson, the shift manager here. You'll be working under my supervision." "Yes, ma'am," Jones said. "All right," Mrs. Thompson said. "You'll start by wiping tables and cleaning up. Remember to be quick and clean. Customers here don't like to wait." Jones began his work, feeling like a handyman. He wiped tables, cleaned up, and carried food to customers. He noticed that some customers seemed uncomfortable when he served them. They looked at him with scrutinizing eyes, and some even asked to be served by another employee. Jones felt anger rising inside him. He knew he was being treated unfairly, but he tried to stay calm. He wanted to know what was happening in this restaurant, and he wasn't going to give up easily. Jones worked diligently throughout the morning, wiping tables, cleaning up, and carrying food to customers. He tried to maintain a friendly demeanor, but he couldn't avoid the scrutinizing glances and harsh words from some colleagues. "Look at him, thinking he's doing something important," a waiter named Kevin said, smirking. "He probably just wandered in here after skipping work somewhere else. Leave him alone." Another employee named Sarah said softly, "He's working hard. Working hard. My foot," Kevin said. "He's probably just putting on an act." Jones heard those words, but he tried to ignore them. He knew he would face more difficulties, but he was determined not to give up. At lunchtime, the restaurant was packed. Jones carried a large tray of food, trying to weave through the crowd. Suddenly, he heard giggling and felt something hit his back. He turned around and saw a boy about 10 years old grinning, holding a handful of French fries. The boy's parents, a well-dressed white couple, were sitting at a nearby table, making no attempt to stop their son. "Excuse me," Jones said, trying to stay calm. "Could you please not throw food?" The boy didn't answer and threw another handful of French fries at Jones. This time, some of the fries hit his face. Jones felt anger surging inside him. He wanted to say something, but he knew he shouldn't make a scene. He just silently wiped his face and continued his work. Sarah, who witnessed the whole incident, approached Jones. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice full of concern. "I'm fine," Jones said, trying to smile. "It's nothing." "It's not nothing," Sarah said. "They have no right to treat you like that." "I know," Jones said, "but I don't want to cause trouble." "You don't have to put up with this," Sarah said. "If you want, I'll talk to the manager." "Thank you," Jones said, "but I'll handle it." But the boy didn't stop and continued to enjoy himself, throwing more food at Jones. This time, he threw a whole glass of soda, soaking Jones. The boy's parents still sat there, making no attempt to stop their son. They even looked at Jones with disdain. "He's just being playful," the man said, his tone arrogant. "But he's throwing food at me," Jones said, trying to stay calm. "So what?" the woman said. "You're an employee here. You're responsible for serving customers." Jones felt anger rising inside him. He knew he was being treated unfairly, but he tried to restrain himself. He didn't want to make a scene, but he couldn't tolerate this humiliation. Just then, Mrs. Thompson appeared. "What's going on here?" she asked, her voice stern. "Ma'am, this boy is throwing food at me," Jones said. "He's just being playful," the man said. "You're making a big deal out of it." Mrs. Thompson looked at Jones, then at the White family. She hesitated for a moment, then said, "Jones, I understand you're upset, but you shouldn't make a scene with customers. Please apologize to them." "Apologize?" Jones said. "I didn't do anything wrong. I don't care who's right or wrong," Mrs. Thompson said, her voice cold. "I only care about keeping the peace in the restaurant. Apologize to them immediately." Jones looked at Mrs. Thompson, then at the White family. He felt utterly disappointed. He knew he couldn't change the situation. He could only bow his head and say, "I apologize." The situation became more tense when another group of white customers entered the restaurant. They sat at a table near the service counter, and Jones was assigned to serve them. This group of customers was very difficult, constantly complaining about everything, from the food to the service. "This chicken is too dry," one man said, wrinkling his nose. "Do you even know how to cook?" "I'm sorry, sir," Jones said. "I'll report it to the kitchen." "What's the point of reporting it?" the man said. "Go get the manager." Jones went to get Mrs. Thompson. But when she arrived, the man said, "I don't want to talk to her. I want to talk to the owner of the restaurant." "The owner isn't here," Mrs. Thompson said, her voice firm. "Then I'll call him," the man said, pulling out his phone. Jones stood there, feeling helpless. He knew he couldn't do anything to resolve the situation. He could only stand by and wait for the worst to happen. Meanwhile, a woman from the customer group stood up and walked towards the service counter. She grabbed a bottle of hot sauce, opened it, and poured it all over the tray of food Jones was about to serve to the customers. "What are you doing?" Jones asked, his voice trembling. "I'm adding seasoning to my food," the woman said, smirking. "But you can't do that," Jones said. "You're ruining the food." "I'll do what I want," the woman said. "What can you do about it?" Jones felt anger rising inside him. He wanted to say something, but he knew he shouldn't make a scene. He just stood there silently, looking at the woman with resentment. At this moment, some other customers in the restaurant started to notice the incident. They looked at Jones with pity, and some shook their heads in disapproval. "That's outrageous," one woman said. "They have no right to treat him like that." "That's right," a man said. "I'll never come back to this restaurant again." Jones heard those words, and he felt a little warmth in his heart. He knew that not everyone discriminated against him, but he also knew that, in the current situation, he couldn't do anything to change things. Mrs. Thompson approached Jones, her face flushed with anger, the veins in her neck bulging. "What kind of stunt are you pulling?" she shouted, her voice echoing throughout the restaurant, causing even the diners to turn and stare. "Do you know how many customers you've just offended?" "I didn't do anything wrong," Jones said, his voice calm but firm. "I'm just trying to do my job, and I'm also defending my dignity." "Is that how you do your job?" Mrs. Thompson said, her tone contemptuous, her lip curling. "Do you know you're ruining the restaurant's reputation?" "Reputation?" Jones said, smirking, his eyes sweeping over the curious faces around him. "The reputation of a restaurant that treats its employees like garbage?" Mrs. Thompson paled, her hands trembling. What are you talking about? She asked, her voice faltering. I'm telling the truth, Jones said, his voice ringing through the restaurant. I'm Marcus Jones, the owner of the big chicken restaurant chain. I came here to see how my employees are being treated, and I've seen enough. The entire restaurant fell silent. The smooth jazz music seemed to stop, leaving only the heavy breathing of the onlookers. Mrs. Thompson's mouth gaped open, unable to speak, her eyes wide as if she couldn't believe what she had just heard. The other employees stared at Jones in shock and disbelief. Mrs. Thompson, Jones said, his voice cold, cutting through the silence. You're fired. Immediately. Get out of here. Mrs. Thompson trembled, trying to say something, but only incoherent sounds came out. Jones didn't give her a chance. He turned to Kevin, who was standing frozen in place. Kevin, he said, you're also fired for your racist behavior, harassment of colleagues, and disrespect towards customers. Get out of here now. Kevin went pale, trying to justify himself, but Jones didn't give him a chance. I have evidence of all your actions, Jones said, and I will not tolerate any discrimination in my restaurant. And all of you who treated me badly, Jones said, looking around the restaurant, his gaze lingering on each frightened face. You're all fired. Immediately. Get out of here. After Jones announced the firings, a tense atmosphere filled the restaurant. The fired employees stood there, stunned, unable to believe what had just happened. You can't do this. Mrs. Thompson stammered, her voice trembling. I've worked here for so many years. You can't fire me over something so small. Something small? Jones raised an eyebrow, his voice cold. You condoned discrimination, disrespect towards employees and customers. That's not something small. But I just wanted to keep the peace in the restaurant, Mrs. Thompson said, trying to justify herself. Peace by trampling on other people's self-respect? Jones said, you were wrong to think I'd let this go. Kevin stood there, his face ashen. Mr. Jones, I'm sorry, he said, his voice trembling. I didn't mean to. You're just a racist, Jones said, cutting Kevin off. I don't need to hear any excuses from you. Leave here immediately. The other employees also began to speak up, begging Jones for forgiveness. Mr. Jones, please give us a chance, one said. We promise to change. A chance? Jones said, his voice full of disappointment. You had a chance, but you didn't appreciate it. You chose to treat me badly, and you have to take responsibility for your actions. But we need this job, another said, their voice full of desperation. I understand, Jones said, his voice softening, but I can't tolerate discrimination. I want Big Chicken to be a place where everyone feels respected and welcome. If you can't accept that, then you don't belong here. Jones looked around the restaurant, his gaze stopping at Sarah, who had always stood by him. Sarah, he said, you're a good employee. I want you to continue working here. I believe you will help me build a better working environment. Sarah nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. Thank you, Mr. Jones, she said. I won't let you down. As for the others, Jones said, looking at the fired employees, I hope you learn a lesson from this. Remember, everyone deserves to be respected, regardless of their skin color, gender, or social status. The story of Jones and the discriminators is a profound lesson about the value of fairness and self-respect. Jones, with his integrity and courage, exposed the true faces of the discriminators, showing that such vile behavior is intolerable. The discriminators paid a heavy price for their actions, losing their jobs and their dignity. A stern warning about the consequences of prejudice. The story also reminds us of the importance of speaking out against injustice. No matter the circumstances, only when we stand together for fairness can we build a better society, where everyone is respected and treated equally. What do you think of this story? If you were in Jones' situation, what would you do to improve the working environment at Big Chicken? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. We would love to hear your feedback. If you found this story meaningful, don't forget to like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories. Thank you for watching this video, and we'll see you in the next one.